Every morning felt the same. The alarm would buzz at 6:30, and I'd lie there staring at the cracked ceiling of my small apartment, wondering if anything in my life would ever change. I'd drag myself out of bed, pour a cup of bitter instant coffee, and head off to the warehouse where I worked as an assistant manager. The job wasn't bad. It paid the bills. But each shift felt like I was trading pieces of my soul for a paycheck that barely covered rent and groceries. At 29, I felt old. Not in body, but in spirit. My days blurred into one another. There were no new challenges, no excitement, no growth. I kept thinking back to when I was younger, how I used to dream of becoming a teacher. I wanted to inspire kids the way my high school literature teacher once inspired me. But after my father got sick and the bills piled up, I took the first job I could find and never looked back. Or rather, I never dared to. What haunted me wasn't just the choices I made, but the feeling that I had somehow missed my moment, that maybe some people were just meant to live small lives, moving boxes in warehouses, ignored by the world. I scrolled through social media and saw old classmates posting about weddings, travel, promotions, even kids. Meanwhile, I had a dying plant on my windowsill and an unopened package of instant noodles that expired last year. Still, I kept going because stopping felt even scarier. If I paused long enough to think, the silence screamed too loud. There was always this sinking weight inside me, a kind of quiet sadness that didn't shout but whispered constantly. You're behind. You wasted your shot. This is it for you. Then, one rainy Wednesday, I was called into the office and handed a letter. Downsizing, they said. Effective immediately. I nodded, numb, took my things, and walked out into the drizzle with no idea what came next. I sat at a bus stop for nearly an hour, soaked, not waiting for any bus, just waiting for the numbness to turn into something else. That night I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling again, except this time it wasn't cracked paint I saw. It was my life peeling away in slow motion. I wasn't angry, just hollow. But beneath the hollowness, something stirred. A quiet thought, like a whisper from an old version of myself I hadn't heard in years. Maybe this isn't the end. Maybe it's the first crack of something new. The next few weeks were a haze. I applied for unemployment, spent hours browsing job sites without really looking, and watched reruns of shows I didn't even like. The silence that used to scare me now felt familiar, like a heavy coat I couldn't take off. Still, I couldn't deny the strange sense of freedom that came with having no schedule, no boss, and nothing left to lose. One afternoon, I wandered into the public library just to escape the heat. I hadn't been there in years. The place smelled like old paper and quiet, comforting in a way I hadn't expected. I sat in a corner flipping through a book I had no intention of reading when I noticed an elderly man setting up a children's reading hour. He had a worn sweater, kind eyes, and a slowness to his steps that spoke of wisdom, not weakness. After the kids left, I helped him stack chairs without being asked. He looked at me and smiled gently, as if he could see right through me. "You ever read to kids?" he asked. "Not since I was one," I joked, half laughing. "You should try it. You've got a calm voice," he replied, as if it were the most natural suggestion in the world. That was how I met Mr. Russo. Turns out, he used to be a teacher. Retired now, but still volunteering, still believing in the power of stories. We started talking every time I came in, which soon became a daily habit. He never pried into my life, but his stories always had a way of answering questions I hadn't asked out loud. One day, he handed me a worn-out children's book and said, "Read this to them tomorrow, just once, no pressure." I almost said no, but something about the way he asked, so gently, like it didn't matter if I failed, made me say yes. I spent the night reading that story over and over until I could recite it from memory. The next day, my hands trembled as I turned the first page in front of 10 wiggly kids. But by the end, they were laughing, and I was smiling for the first time in what felt like months. It felt good, not just the reading, but being seen, being useful in a way that mattered. After the session, Mr. Russo patted my shoulder. "See, destiny isn't something that strikes like lightning. Sometimes it's just a quiet knock you almost miss." Those words stayed with me. I'd spent years thinking destiny was a door that had closed forever. But maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was still there, just waiting for me to find the courage to open it again. The next few weeks became a quiet rhythm. I showed up to the library almost every day, reading to kids, helping them with homework, even cleaning up the crafts table when no one else did. There was no paycheck, no promise of a future, but for the first time in years, I felt useful, like I mattered. That small sense of purpose began to thaw something inside me. Mr. Russo started slipping small challenges into our conversations, suggesting I look into evening classes, mentioning a local program for aspiring teaching assistants, even bringing me old books on child psychology and classroom management. At first, I brushed it off. I was too old, too broke, too late. But each suggestion lingered, like seeds planted quietly in the back of my mind. One afternoon, I stayed late to help a boy named Eli with his reading. He was shy, stuttered a bit, and always sat at the back. That day, he finally read a full paragraph out loud. His eyes lit up with pride, and he grinned like he had just conquered a mountain. "You're good at this," Mr. Russo said afterward. "That moment, you gave that to him." That night, I sat on the edge of my bed with my laptop open, staring at a blank application form for the community college's teaching certification program. My hands hovered over the keyboard. I was terrified, not just of failing, but of trying, of daring to hope again. But then I thought about Eli's smile, about the kids' laughter during story time, about how I used to dream of chalkboards and classroom noise and kids calling my name. And I began typing. The process wasn't easy. I took part-time work at a bookstore to pay for classes. I failed one of my first exams and had to retake it. There were moments I wanted to quit, times when the doubt crept back in like fog. But every time I felt myself slipping, I'd stop by the library. Mr. Russo would be there, reading alone, as if waiting. And somehow, just seeing him reminded me why I started. 2 years later, I walked into my first classroom, not as a volunteer, not as an assistant, but as a teacher. My classroom was small, the walls still bare, but it was mine. And as I greeted the students and saw their curious faces, something in me clicked. I was exactly where I was meant to be. Sometimes people think destiny is a grand event, a shining moment that changes everything. But for me, it was found in broken routines, in unexpected friendships, and in small choices made on quiet afternoons. I didn't find destiny. I built it. One page, one class, one child at a time. And maybe that's the truth we all forget. Our future doesn't wait in some distant moment. It begins the instant we choose to believe we deserve more. If this story moved you, share it with someone who might need it. Drop a comment, subscribe for more stories, and never stop chasing the version of yourself that's waiting to be found.